Hello all of you out there, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the top 10 best wildcard tames based on how often they appear on cover art. So let's get into it. So in at number 10 is the Mosa, and anytime water is kind of apparent in any Ark poster art or art of the sort, the Mosa is always going to come up somewhere, and the Megalodon is quite common as well, and the Bloodstalker will occasionally appear in some scenarios like that, and one other ocean creature which is further on the list too, but I'll leave that anonymous for the time being for the sake of spoilers. But in terms of the Mosa as a creature, unlike what it is on the cover art, this is pretty much one of the most powerful sea creatures, which is probably why it is on the cover art of most Ark Ocean cover art, and it is extremely powerful and it looks extremely impressive with its big teeth and also its very symmetrical and long shape. It definitely makes sense why this appears a lot and why this is one of Wildcard's favourite tames to put on Ocean Ark cover art. In at number 9 is the Theory, and this creature is apparent in some of the cover art which you'll find in Ark. Obviously it isn't going to be in everything, but you'll find it in the background of some things, just gathering some bushes, or in a pair occasionally. And when you look at the photos of Ark in Steam, when you just flick through all of the kind of gameplay images, and the Theory definitely does appear quite a lot, and a lot more than other Ark creatures, which is obviously why it is on this list. And again, like the Mosa, the Theory's shape is very, very iconic with its big claws, which is why a lot of Ark players call this thing Freddy Krueger or the Tickle Chicken. Personally, I'm more of a Tickle Chicken kind of guy. And in terms of the use of the Theory in the actual game, it is an extremely useful creature which you'll use a lot, which is great that it is on the cover art, as you know that this thing is going to be in the game and a big part of the game, considering how much the Theory is advertised in the general space of Ark. In terms of its use, I don't know why I didn't say it before I talked about advertising, it is an insane gatherer of fibre, berries, thatch and wood, and it is really great for bosses as well, especially the dragon on the island, as it is a herbivore, so the dragon is significantly less OP towards it. So the Theory is definitely a great shout at the moment on ASA. If you're looking to do the dragon boss fight, get some Theories, don't bother with things like Rexes, get some Theories and you will have the best time. Now we have the Basto, and this is the ocean creature on which I was talking about. This is the ocean creature which is even more popular than the Mosa on cover art, partly because a lot more people use it, and when you looked at the ASA trailer as well, this is in the ASA trailer, and I'm pretty sure the Mosa isn't, and the Basto is definitely the more popular of the two dinos from general Ark players right now, so it is definitely obvious why Wildcard picks this thing for cover art and trailers and all of that instead of the Mosa. Obviously the Mosa is still going to be there and Megalodons are still going to be there, but the Basto is always going to be there somewhere, and if it isn't, it might be some older bit of cover art when the Basto wasn't as popular, as it has definitely gained a lot of popularity over the last 2 or 3 years. And in the earlier stages of Ark, I don't even know if it really existed. I did tame it at some point, I'm not actually sure. This definitely didn't come out with the original release of Ark, but it has definitely gained popularity in recent years, which is why it is so popular on cover art. Next up, we have the Wyvern, and this creature essentially makes up a sixth of the general main Ark cover art. Obviously, there being 6 main story maps at the moment, being the Island, Scorched Earth, Arboration, Extinction, Gen 1 and Gen 2. Soon to be another DLC map, but we don't know what that is yet. Probably not actually very soon, it'll be sometime next year or even early into 2025, who knows at the moment, but we are expecting a story arc before obviously Ark 2 comes out, as who knows at this point when that thing is actually going to release. I can't remember when its original launch date was announced, but it is definitely gone past that point by now. I think it was supposed to be out for like Jurassic World Dominion, something along those lines. So essentially the Wyvern actually makes up a sixth of the main Ark cover art, which is why this thing is here, and a lot of Ark fans do really really like the wyvern, and it gets talked about a lot, and it is an extremely popular creature, like I've said. And it has a wealth of abilities as well, like that wing flap ability which you just saw, which barely anyone uses, but it is actually a really good way to get wood. And they can also pick up a wealth of creatures too, although their turning circle is absolutely abysmal, and sometimes they can't land properly, which is a little bit of a bug. They do an extremely high amount of damage, and they have great stamina and great speed, and they are actually one of the fastest flyers in the Ark game, so don't underestimate them. For a similar reason, we also have the Reaper coming in next on the list, as obviously this thing is in the Arboration cover art, but I think if I looked at it correctly, it is somewhere in the Gen 2 cover art or somewhere related to Gen 2, which is obviously why it is higher on this list, and that is obviously why it is above the wyvern, as it now essentially counts to 2/6 of the total of the main Ark cover arts, and for good reason. The Reaper is an extremely impressive looking tame, and it has a very recognizable shape, which is why I use it a lot in my thumbnails actually, as the Reaper is something that even the least experienced Ark players can pick up if they know a little bit of Ark knowledge. Otherwise they'll just assume it is a Ark creature which they haven't seen before, and they'll just click on the video anyway. Not to say that viewers are dumb, I don't want to fall into that category of someone that thinks my viewers are dumb. I know all of you out there are intelligent, I'm not saying you're dumb there, but I'm just saying generally how thumbnails work and how the Reaper is quite an enticing shape. But yes, never take me saying from that you viewers are dumb. I highly value you, and you are the reason why I'm successful on this platform, and I'm extremely grateful for all of you out there. I don't know if I've said that before on my channel, but I really do mean it. Next up, we have the Rock Drake, and you may think I'm going a little bit crazy now, as surely the Rock Drake is just on the Arboration cover art, and it isn't going to make it onto the Gen 2 cover art, as the Rock Drake isn't in Gen 2. And you'd be right, but the Ultimate Survivor edition of Ark has the Rock Drake on the cover, which is why the Rock Drake is above where the Reaper is, as this creature is on the kind of now main cover art for Ark Ultimate Survivor Edition, which is the whole full package. This is recognized as like the best creature from Arboration, and the Reaper did not make the list. And again, the Rock Drake has a really iconic shape, and again I use it quite a lot in thumbnails. Obviously I'm not going to use it for every video, that would be pretty stupid, but who knows, this thumbnail may have a Rock Drake in the thumbnail. Actually, I've made the thumbnail at the moment, there'll either be a Reaper or a Rock Drake in this thumbnail, so whatever one it was, that is the one I decided to go with. And I'm just giving you a little bit of thinking behind how I make some videos, as I know some of you out there do make your own YouTube videos too, and you know, with all of these videos I do try and educate you, as well as obviously just giving you general information on what's going on. I also like to educate you on content creation as well, not just on Ark, as I know loads of you out there do want to get into making your videos or make videos already, and it is nice to pick up some tips from other creators on YouTube which are maybe doing something which you would like to do and are doing it with the success which you would like to see. Obviously I'm not saying I'm the most successful YouTube channel out there, as I'm definitely not, but again I'm very grateful for all of the support I have from you out there, and I didn't really expect this audience 7 months ago when I started creating content. Next up, we have the Shadowmane, and again this appears on the cover art for the Ultimate Survivor Edition of Ark and on Gen 2 as well. And yeah, this thing is just so apparent, and the reason why it is higher than the Rock Drake on the list is also just because it is the more popular and newer creature, it's more ability packed, and it is definitely more utilized nowadays in terms of cover art than the Rock Drake is, as the Rock Drake, you could say, is somewhat outdated. That creature is 6 whole years old now, soon to be 7 going into next year, which is absolutely insane to think of. But it's also insane to think that the Shadowmane, I think, is 2 years old now. Did Gen 2 come out in 2021, or was it 2022? It might have been either. It's 1 or 2 years old now, which is absolutely insane, as Gen 2 really does not feel like a while ago. But obviously it is very very understandable why this thing is on the list. This is a so recognizable creature, and it has a wealth of abilities. It's extremely popular, and it came out on a new DLC, which obviously adds to its popularity. In at number 3 is the Baryonyx. And on so many cover arts, and I think the main cover art on Steam for Ark, when you install the game and you go into it, the Baryonyx is right there. The Baryonyx, for some reason, and in my opinion, I'm glad for it, is shown on so many things. Probably just because of its iconic shape, and the Ark character really does scale very nicely with this creature, as if you put them on a Rex, you can't really see that whole character and their expressions and all of that. And if you put them on a Raptor, which obviously sometimes does happen and will happen a lot in terms of cover art, they may seem a bit too big, and you kind of want a bit of perspective on the size of the dinos, and the Barry seems to do that perfectly. And obviously in the game, especially on the islands, you're going to be using the Barry a lot if you want to have any kind of reasonable success in caves. Unless you have another caving creature preference, comment down below what is your caving creature of choice. Obviously mine is the Baryonyx, or maybe I'll go for a Shadow Mane. In terms of its other special abilities, just apart from being the right size to fit into caves, if you press right click on your mouse, you can do a spin attack underwater, which will stun creatures up to the size of a Megalodon, which is just a really cool, nice ability to have. In at number 2 is the Rex. And with the new ASA cover art for the game, there is literally 2 Rexes on the cover art, so that is double right there. The cover art for ASA just has the Rex on it, although there is one creature which is obviously topping this thing, as this thing is only in number 2. But I'm definitely sure that you all knew that already. As you know, 2 isn't the same number as 1. Don't know why, that is a completely irrational point. I am so off topic today. Sorry, either way, back to the Rex. It is obvious why the Rex is on so many cover arts, as this is one of the most iconic dinos out there. It has a very recognizable shape. It is big, it has big teeth. It just gives everything a really nice scale. Maybe not as nice as the Baryonyx in my opinion, but the Rex is a creature which every person that just knows what a dinosaur is will know. Like, the first dinosaur you learn is the T-Rex. So games are going to sell, and things are going to sell more if you chuck Rexes on the cover of your game. Probably why ASA has 2 literal Rexes on the cover of that game. And the Rex is obviously used very widely throughout all of Ark's cover arts, right from the original, and in the original trailer the Rex was shown as well. And I think the Rex was shown in the ASA trailer, although I'm not quite sure about that. And you should tame the Rex in ASA if you haven't already, as it is easier than ever to tame, and I've talked about this so much recently, but it is now one of the easiest tames, and the fact that drops are more OP means a saddle is really easy to find for this thing in a drop. Tame a Rex on ASA as soon as you can. And did you see it coming? In at number 1 is the Raptor, and obviously this creature is the most marketed. Not really sure why. Don't know why I couldn't speak there at all. It is unreasonably late when I'm recording this. But back to the topic. Again, don't know why I'm so off topic this video. In terms of obviously the Raptor's marketing, this is like a staple of Ark. And the first screenshot we got of ASA was obviously of a Raptor, and a lot of the marketing around Ark has a Raptor. The original Ark wallpaper, the character was riding a Raptor, and the Raptor is again one of the most recognizable dinos. You'll learn about the T-Rex, but you'll also learn about the Raptor, which I don't really get isn't called the Velociraptor, but you know, it isn't in Ark, so it isn't. I don't really have an issue with it. Don't get why it wasn't called the Velociraptor, as that is obviously the more kind of correct term for it. But I guess you can just call it whatever Raptor you want, and it is also a lot easier to say and a lot more simple to say, as with Ark players in general anyway, stuff just seems to get simplified anyway. Stegosaurus never gets said, it's always Stego. Triceratops turned into Trike for some reason. but that's probably because the saddle was just named Trike Saddle, and then people adopted that name. But there are loads and loads and loads of weird names for creatures, and obviously the Raptor doesn't have any. It's just so well known. Everyone just calls this thing the Raptor, and there is really no mistake on why this thing is the most advertised Ark Tame out there. But I just want to know, what weird names do you call creatures? As I don't really have all too many, apart from calling Titanoboas Danger Noodles. But definitely, I want to hear those down in the comments below. The top 10 oldest Ark Tames. So, in at number 10 is the Theory. And this creature is just one of those creatures which, albeit was in the original game of Ark, at least I think it did come to the game originally, but I don't remember too much of. But it is still an extremely useful tame today, and back then I still did use it a little bit, but not as soon as it released back in June the 17th of 2015, or at least I think it released back then, or that is when it was announced, something along those lines. Either way, it was in the very, very early stages of the Ark game, but I didn't use it too much, but I did kind of use it more in 2016, back in those days of Ark, not in 2015, in those really early days of Ark, but in those later early days, 2016, 2017, I did use a lot out of this. So obviously this isn't going to take the number 1 spot, but it is still a creature which to this day, and still back in 2016 and 2017, like I've said, did have a lot of great use, and still has a lot of great use actually. I shouldn't put it in the past tense. It is still a great creature now, and in ASA it is still a great creature. This is great at gathering fiber, thatch, wood and berries, and it is great for the dragon boss fight on the island. You really just can't go wrong with the Theory at all. It just gets everything right, and it is just one of those tames which is great, and I think every Ark player at some point should tame one. Especially because its saddle is unlocked at level 69.
Nice.
Next up, we have the Sego. And this creature is again just one of those basic essential creatures which I think every Ark player should obtain at some point. And there is nothing which you can really say against the Sego. This is just one of those creatures which you have to tame again, and especially with the TLC 3 update, this is a much better creature now. But the reason why I'm putting it above the Theory, which some people probably wouldn't, and in terms of use of creature, the Theory is a better creature than the Sego, but in terms of pure nostalgia and back in the day and my memories of these creatures, I would put the Sego higher, as the Sego was kind of that first big tame which I obtained, which was a real big milestone for me, which I didn't get from any other Ark creature, apart from one other, which is very notable, which I'll talk about, and that is later on this list. But yes, nostalgia is playing a big factor in this list too, although not the biggest out there. There are still some creatures on this list which are great, and I still remember really fondly. And yeah, there's just loads of creatures on this list which are affected by nostalgia. But in terms of the Stego's TLC 3 update uses, which obviously it didn't have back in the day, it has its 3 plate modes now, the sharpened, hardened and heavy plate, which is great for berry gathering. There's one which is great for turret soaking, and the other which is great for not dealing damage to wood, for gathering wood. Definitely an essential resource which you'll need a lot of in your Ark journey. Some of you may say that this is sacrilegious, that I'm putting the carb enemies above the Theory and the Sego, but really, back in the day, I loved the carb enemies so much, and to this day, I actually still really like the carb enemies as well. It is just one of those creatures which I find really appealing, and I just love this thing in so many ways. The carb enemies is just so good, but I should probably stop just spewing adjectives in your face and actually talk about why I liked the carb enemies back then and why I still like the carb enemies to this day. In terms of its uses, I actually found this was a really easy tame, and I enjoyed its berry gathering. At least I think it can gather berries. If it can't, that's going to be a little bit embarrassing, isn't it? As I remember gathering berries on this thing. If it can though, then yeah, it is actually a pretty reasonable berry gatherer in the early stages of the game. But namely, I did use it for gathering oil and silica pearls whenever they were added. I think they were in the original game. Were they there in the beginning? I actually don't know. Comment down below if they were in the beginning. But either way, I did use them for ocean exploration and gathering of oil and silica pearls, as obviously that was something that you needed, and the ocean was obviously not finished back then, so there wasn't all the dangers, but it was still a particularly scary place, and the carb enemies really made the oceans somewhat less hostile, and that is why this was just such a great creature for me back in the day, and definitely one which still to this day you should tame, or if you're not into it, you can still use it for keratin. In at number 7 we have the Spino, and this creature really is just one of those kind of Rex-like creatures, and just one of those big carnivores which were heavily respected back in the day, and the Spino is still pretty respected to this day as well. And this is just one of those creatures which I think every Ark player should tame at some point, and depending on the environment and the time, obviously these actually can be a little bit more easy to tame than something like a Rex, although that isn't usually the case, but they aren't much harder. The only real advantage you have of taming a Rex over a Spino in terms of difficulty is the Rex is significantly slower than the Spino, but that also means once tamed you have a much slower creature than if you tame the Spino, where you'll get a much faster creature which will do a lot better in the long run. Unless you're doing bosses, obviously, then the Rex is going to be a better option. But for everything else, underwater exploration and all kinds of moving around the Ark map and combat as well, the Spino is pretty much going to be one of your best bets. And back in the day as well, the Spino was just a highly respected creature which everyone really knew as just like the Rex, but a little bit better, is essentially how it was regarded as it was seen as a bigger carnivore, a more powerful carnivore, and just a better carnivore overall. And I don't think it had the hydration buff back in the day, but now it does, and it can stand on its hind legs too, which obviously allows it to deal even more damage, and in water it can deal even more damage still. Now, the Anki is just one of those tames which some people may have said was extremely annoying back in the day, and actually it was kind of annoying in a sense. There was just always an aggroed Anki on you, but when you actually tamed one, you really did appreciate these things. Although back in the day, I didn't really tame much of an Anki. Again, coming more into 2016 is when I kind of started with the Anki. Before that, I just used a metal pick, and I just got along with that. Although I really should have started using the Anki sooner, as this is one of the best Ark creatures, and definitely the best Ark creature out there for gathering metal. It is definitely one of the most useful creatures which you will find in the Ark game, and back then and still to this day, it is one of the most useful Ark Tames, and nothing really can beat it. Obviously there's the Dodic as well, which is great for stone gathering, which you can kind of put in this position as well. Although I only really tamed the Dodic back in the day, and I tamed it before the Anki actually, because it could roll, and that was seen as a really cool ability, and I really did like that, and that was just such a cool feature. Although the Anki didn't have it, I would still say the Anki is the more useful creature. In at number 5 is the Castoroides. And when this thing was added, as it wasn't in the original game when it first came out, this was just a creature which was so highly respected, and loads of people started going out for this thing. It was just so good, and the fact that its saddle acted as a smithy as well was just such a cool ability, albeit not new, as the RG did have that before the Castoroides. But the Castoroides was just one of those creatures which was seen as really cool, and it was a kind of upgraded carb enemies for me, as I could take it into the water, and it was a lot faster than the carb enemies, and it dealt a lot more damage than the carb enemies, which was useful to me. And again, with that saddle being a portable smithy, I could repair any gear if I needed to. And also they were great for gathering wood back in the day, and the fact that I didn't build in stone back then, I built in wood, and wood was such a drag to get because obviously I didn't change the settings at all. I just played exactly on official, which I think a lot of people did back then. It was an absolute savior to have this creature to get a load of that wood gathered, and you should definitely get one of these things still to this day. If you don't have a chainsaw, if you have a chainsaw, just use the chainsaw, but if you don't, get a Casto. They're one of the best wood gatherers in the game. Next up, we have the Raptor, and the Raptor was just that creature which was that carnivore which was just so accessible to everyone, and you couldn't really not tame a Raptor. And I went through a lot of Raptors in my time actually, as they kept getting killed in loads on loads of different ways, which obviously is kind of how it went. But you seem to care a lot more back then when a creature died, and it was actually a pretty sad loss back in the day when a creature of yours died, whereas now I don't really seem to care as much. I don't know what that means for me as a person anymore. I guess I may just be dead inside now, and I can't care or love for anything. But in terms of the Raptor, this is obviously one of the best carnivores in the game. Obviously, not like the best carnivore in terms of stats, but in terms of when you can get this thing and how much damage it will deal at the time, and the speed which it has, as long as it isn't encumbered because its weight is pretty rubbish. This is one of the best creatures which you can have, and it will significantly speed up your progress in the early game, and it is definitely one which you'll want to have at some point in your Ark gaming experience. And it is definitely one which needs to be tamed at some point, and luckily doesn't have that awful pounce ability anymore, as that was absolute torture. It was fun once tamed, but in the wild, these things became way too OP for their level, and I'm glad Wildcard nerfed it. In at number 3 is the Rex, and the Rex is obviously just that creature which is insane for so many things, and it is one of my favorite old Ark creatures. Even though in ASA now I've kind of lost a lot of respect for it, considering how easy this thing's taming method is, which is a little bit of a shame to me, as I really liked the Rex and I liked the kind of difficulty around its taming method. Although not very difficult, it did take some work and it was a big achievement once you tamed one. Whereas now it doesn't really seem like that, and they're just some of the easiest tames in the game, especially with ASA, with the new baby feature. You can just find a baby Rex if its parent's been killed by Bronto, and then you don't even need to kill a Rex sometimes. And the Rex which I got in ASA, I just found a baby Rex lying around, and I clicked a button, and then I had a Rex. And so many other people would have had that same experience as well, and it's just so broken how easy the Rex is to tame in Ark, and it's a little bit of a shame really, but I still love the Rex, and obviously it is one of the not best boss creatures out there. This is obviously one of the most balanced carnivores, and that is why it is so good for bosses, as it has enough health and it has enough damage, and obviously the weight and stam don't really matter. But if you want a creature with more weight and stam, you can always go for something like an Aloe. In at number 2 is the Carno, and I really do have fond memories of this creature, and this is pretty much my favourite Ark tame. I just love the Carno for everything which it has. The Carno is just one of those tames which I always go out to tame, and yes, you could say the Aloe is a better creature, but I always have a better time and more fun time on a Carno, and I'll always go out and tame a Carno before any other creature really. Sometimes I'll tame a Carno before a Raptor, although that is a little bit rarer nowadays, as Raptors are so easy to tame and they're so abundant seemingly. Like, Raptors are just everywhere now, especially on the island in ASA, that you kind of just can't get away from them, and at some point you'll just end up taming one on sort of accident, although deliberate. But, you know, in terms of my Raptor tame on ASA, it was actually an accident in some way. Obviously, I wanted to tame it once I'd bowlered it, but a Raptor came up to attack me. I had bowlers, and then I trained it from there. But if that Raptor didn't come up to attack me, I wouldn't have tamed it, so I kind of classify that as an accident. But in terms of the Carno, once tamed, its tame method is very simple, by the way. Just a very simple knockout tame. This creature, especially with the TLC update, is one of the best fighting creatures in the game, in my opinion. It has that bleed ability, which is very important for any carnivore to have, and also it will attack reasonably quickly, and it does have the health to keep up with that as well, which is very essential for any carnivore to have. In at number 1 is the RG, and do any of you out there have nostalgia for the old RG model? As yes, the new one is so much better, but that old RG model really does invoke nostalgia, and who doesn't love a good RG? Back in the day, obviously, I didn't use any kind of trap to tame this thing. I just simply got out a crossbow with some trank arrows and just tranked out a level RG, and I think it was only like a level 5 or something really low like that. It was an extremely low level, But I was very, very happy with it. And with my friends back in the day when I played Ark with them, don't really play Ark with anyone now, and I don't really actually play that much Ark, as I'm just always making videos, but not really just playing Ark in my free time. I tamed a lot of RGs back then, and I have really fond memories of the RG. And obviously the RG is a really great creature as well, being one of the best flyers in the game, and a really great creature for transporting metal across any map. Obviously, that allows flyers, arboration, and Gen 1, the RG simply isn't going to work for you, but there are other alternatives on the map, like you can use the Rock Drake or you can use the Bloodstalker. Also, the RG can pick up a wealth of creatures as well, and especially considering it can pick up the Anki and Doedicurus, it is really convenient for getting loads of resources, especially because it has weight reduction too, which I didn't talk about earlier when I was talking about how good this thing is at transporting resources around the map. And also, if it does kill a dead body too, it will have an insane regen buff, and it's saddled, like the Castoroides, has a portable smithy in it. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I hope that you enjoyed this one. And with that, I want to know, what is your top 10 favourite old Ark creatures, and I'll see you all later.